and mumbling names today and getting all jarred and jumbled, and I just can't count. So you know what? We're pretty much in the
Wow.
same today. So that's just what's
You no, you were so
happening.
convinced that you almost had me convinced that I started questioning my
I
math.
was like, why
I was
is
like,
she
okay, wait.
asking me that? Like, what? Can you not
I
count,
started.
Kai? I know Kai can
Oh,
count, because Kai's pretty intelligent. I'm like, I know she can
but you
count.
were so
10 plus
convinced
10.
in your stuff. And I was like, do I need to pull out the calculator? Am I wrong?
And I'm
There's
like,
no way I
Kai,
can be wrong.
Nelson,
I
Clinton.
questioning
Like,
myself.
okay. So funny.
Good
But then
lord.
I had my whole spiel too. Did you hear that with the logic of it all, and even the year, the next year
Yes.
was
It was
coming
like,
up?
wait, I was like, is she serious or is she playing? Is she testing me?
No, I was absolutely serious. It was
Wow.
and you know what's funny is, you know what should have been the dead giveaway for me? Well, no pun intended, dead giveaway. Was I just said that she was born, Wendy was born August the 6th, 1997. So hello, 97 is 3 years from 2000. So that should have still been a clue. It was way back then. So
It's
anyway,
okay. It's okay.
yeah, let's kind of get into that. Let's get into the juicy part of the story, because that was just so weird. So her unfortunate victim, his name was, well, it was her husband, as a matter of fact, but he's not her husband just yet. According to our story, we're going to just take this as it comes along. But her husband, incidentally, his name was Joe. So, well, basically, that's it. He was 33 years old at the time of his death, unfortunately. So that would be Joe Adriano. Okay. So let's talk about what kind of person was she. I always want to get into the mind, Kai as well. I like to get into the mind of a murderer, don't you, Kai? Like, what makes you think the way that you did? Because you couldn't have always just necessarily, every murderer is not born like Jeffrey,
Yeah, I mean, there are
um, Holy Lisa or
documentaries
something,
on there are documentaries on like Netflix about that. But yeah,
right?
I've always wondered. But I honestly would be too scared to ask because what if she got out of jail? I mean, Hannibal Lecter, anybody? She tried to get into his head. He broke out of jail, and look at what happened.
Okay, I agree with that, but I think I'm going more on the lines of, did you have a traumatic childhood, or did you have was life beautiful, growing up, and what happened to you that can cause trauma in your life to where you feel as if you can just be this heinous person later on. But remember, some murders are just snaps where people don't mean to do it, especially domestic violence, because our show is about domestic violence, by the way, people, right? So let's find out what Wendy was really like, as far as what we believe, and according to the authorities' reports and all of that. Okay, so Wendy, she was very well. Let me just say that she's still alive to this day. So we'll explain that later. But Wendy is a very attractive blonde. She had a heart of gold, according to her friends who knew her. I don't know. Do all your friends say that when they think you're going away for life, or let's say if you die or whatever? Do they just say you were? Oh, she was just such a great
What do
person.
you what do you think? You're gonna be murdered, and they're gonna be like, "Man, Char was such a bitch."
No, because Wendy's not the no, she's actually the murderer. She's not the victim. The victim was Joe. Joe is her husband. So according to her
Oh,
friend,
okay.
yes, the opposite,
Well,
yeah,
never
yeah.
mind.
Now it's Kai's time for a brain freeze. She didn't quite catch that. That's okay. So she's very attractive blonde. She's actually the murderer here. According to her friends and family, though, this is what they said. They said that she had a heart of gold. She was very sweet, and she had a trusting personality to most people that knew her. Okay, you got that? But on the other hand of that, her future husband, Joe Adriano's family, they thought that she was rather odd, like kind of a quiet fit, if you can use that expression, a quiet fit, because he was a high school football star. And they just felt like there's something eerie about her. They didn't feel like there was a match. I'm sorry, but if I'm a parent and I have a daughter, well, if I'm a parent and I have a son, why would I have a problem with a nice girl who's quiet? What's you want? Should he marry a hoe or something, like, or a streetwalker, or like someone who's just fast in the streets? It doesn't make any sense to me if that was the family's only complaint throughout their relationship. I mean, Kai, isn't that crazy? It's like, really, this is what your problem? This is what else you got? You're upset because she's sweet and she's quiet. So anyway, his family just never ever grew to like or accept Wendy, no matter what she did or did not do. She and Joe both grew up, as a matter of fact, in a nice farming community called Casa Grande, Arizona. Now, they did attend high school together, but they never dated. Now, here's another reason why I'm not understanding why his family had an issue with her. Can you believe that she was a minister's daughter? Okay, so I don't mean the PKs that kind of lose it and go hog wild
Oh,
out the cage.
I was about to say, so the stereotype of that is that if you are, you go crazy after you leave the house.
But that was exactly my point. I was saying she wasn't the example of the PKs that go hog wild when they get off the cage and they do everything the opposite of what they were taught to do in the wholesome environment they were in growing up. I'm actually a PK, and so we'll leave it at that. Okay. You guys have heard
Wow.
my wild stories, though, right? So you're thinking, how is that, Char?
Mm.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother show in itself. So anyway, so as a minister's daughter, her entire life was evolved around her father's church. I mean, that kind of makes sense, you know. And so anyway, with her family, like basically her family doing church things, church functions, events, and things like that. And she adored this. She just adored being at church. She loved everything about her spiritual life. So anyway, it was everything to her. Now, after graduation from high school, she devoted herself, once again, Wendi, the murderer, she devoted herself to missionary work in Mexico, believe it or not, helping poor families. I mean, talk about a good person at this point. Not exactly
I
Mother
guess we're
Teresa,
supposed
but
to enter. Aww,
oh
here, right?
yes, I think I did. You didn't get a warm fuzzy. You didn't get a warm fuzzy feeling.
Yeah, I
You're
don't
a
think it came over
messenger.
me yet.
Nah, okay. So, guys, you're a cold piece, as they say. You know, it's not easy to just get to penetrate through you. You're not one of those people's like any little thing, like, oh, I'm seeing roses and marshmallows. That's me, though. You know that. So anyway, after she returned back to Arizona, she actually took a job. I mean, she's like, okay, what am I going to do with my life now? You know, and so she took a job in the clerical field because she had a knack for business and administration, and this is going to come in handy to have this information just in just a bit here. So, in fact, a few years later, someone randomly introduced her to Joe, like just officially, because haven't you ever gone to high school with someone, Kai, and maybe he was cute, and you might have thought, oh, he's interesting, but like you never ever really knew each other, maybe weren't properly introduced. Did you know anyone like that in high school?
I mean, you know a lot of people who you thought were interesting, but then you just keep going because high school is high school.
Yeah, I do agree with that. So anyway, so her friends, they pretty much just introduced them. You know, she hooked up with him, with Joe, and they actually would fall in love. I mean, pretty much eventually. And then he did ask her to marry him. So during their courtship, they had a lot of fun together. So I'm thinking maybe this might have lasted over about a year or so. They didn't say specifically, but they had a lot of fun together. They would do things like take his boat out. He owned a boat there in Phoenix. I'm trying to see the irony of that. Is there really water in Phoenix? Does anybody live there that can vouch for this in our comment section on one of our platforms, please?
Maybe a lake? Is there a lake?
Yeah,
No?
there is a lake. There's a lake. I'm just
Okay.
joking, but I'm still not
I was
picturing
about to say,
that.
I don't know anything about there.
Well, because but don't you always hear that it's just so super hot, even hotter than Vegas? And Vegas is Arabia hot, so that's all I ever knew about. Phoenix is that it's really hot. Maybe, but they obviously have some natural lakes or something like that, right? So anyway, they would take his boat out, cruising around in the lake. They would go to nice dinners, the whole wine and dine scenario. So they finally married in 1994. Now, sometime later, because Joe was mechanically inclined, meaning that he loved working with his hands. So he would weld boats. He actually worked for a boating company. That was his job, was to weld the boats. And so he decided to start a windshield repair business together. And since Wendi had strong office and administration experience, she ran the business successfully. She did a really good job, according to what they said, while he did the windshield installs. So it's like they're a tag team. Not so bad, right? So now, about a year after they were married, Joe had a health scare. This is really a shame, Kai, because imagine you just get married, you think you're happy, because he told everyone, his family, I don't care why you guys don't like my wife. I don't know what it is you don't like about her. She's practically a saint, but for whatever reason you don't like her. But I'm very happy with Wendi. This is what he said. So about a year after they were married, Joe had a health scare twice, not once but twice. Doctors found a malignant moles on his face and other parts of his body. But you know what was so weird about it though? Wendi and Joe were concerned because they okay, the doctors are like, oh, it's not cancerous, you're good. Now imagine this happened twice within a year and a half. Isn't that crazy? And they so they had to have surgery to remove them, and all the drastic measures,
Poor guy.
all of that. Yeah, so he's. I mean, I would be thinking, should I get a second opinion from a different doctor or something? But I don't think they did, to be honest with you, because the
I would
doctor's like,
always get a second opinion.
exactly, because it could save your life. I totally agree with that. So Wendy and Joe were concerned as a couple. They were concerned that these moles were actually cancerous, but the doctors assured them, no, they're benign. They're benign. Just go on with your life. You're good. You're fine. Just take some vitamins or something, right? And so, however, eventually the last diagnosis, which is the last year that he lived on Earth, that was the last diagnosis. It was definitely cancer. So by this time, it had spread to his organs and become fatal. Why, you say? Because they waited for so long because the doctors were wrong. Don't ever, if anyone's listening out there and you're
So
concerned about
he
your health,
just listened to that one doctor said you're
yes,
okay, and he was like, well, okay then.
yeah, yeah. And I'm going to tell you why later that I do believe that theory, Kai. I do believe that's what they did. So Joe is now, for clear reasons, he was too weak from constant chemo to work or take care of their two beautiful children. So Wendy found a job. Remember Wendy is a
Quick
business
question.
administration person. Yeah.
Sorry, quick question.
Sure, sure.
He got the moles removed, and then they told him it was okay, or they were still on.
No, 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 no. He definitely got both moles removed because they showed a scar actually in the photos, in the discovery photos. He has a big scar. There was a big scar there, so he got them removed. But the point is that because he kept, the doctors kept releasing him, saying he was okay. There was no treatment facilitated that could have, I mean, by the time he was in chemo, I mean, what it's like, and he was doing rounds and rounds of chemo because they said he was really, really sick. He was very, very weak. You see, so it's kind of like, does that answer your question? Because it went through, it attacked the body,
So
unfortunately.
they took it off, and it came back, and they took it off again,
Right,
right?
twice,
Okay,
yes.
just making sure. Got it.
Yeah, well, by the time he was diagnosed, though, Kai, it had already spread internally because these moles, of course, are external, right? That's generally, I'm thinking that it was some type of skin cancer, but a very fatal form of that, as at least how it started. So, yeah. Yeah, so he
What's
was
it
in.
called? What's it called? Melatonin, mela something.
They didn't use that term because that represents the skin cancer. It was something worse than that that's very rare, and I really should have got the exact name of it. But it was, see, that you can often remove it and everything's good, right? And or something like burn it off. But in this case, there was something else attacking the body. It was in that category of a skin cancer, but it was obviously something more severe because it attacked his internal organs, and that was that you know. And so, but yeah, he was 2 weeks. So she said, she's like, well, honey, listen, I'm going to go look for a job because after all, I do have employable skills. Okay. So Wendy found a job at an upscale luxury apartment community there in Phoenix called San Riva. It's supposed to be very nice. This is where she was fortunate to live rent free with her family in a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment. So that's not a bad deal. Would you agree?
Dude, I honestly wish I could live rent free. Huh? But with my family.
Let's weigh these apples and oranges out on the scale here. By myself as a single person, no rent, got a family to take care. Let's bring it like that. I know it's kind of
Yeah.
funny though. Well, you know what, Kai? I'm glad you said that. I'm going to tell you why. Because what you just said was Wendy's, like how her actual mind works. You were only joking, but she was serious. And so in her mind, she's like, wait a minute, I'm running this beautiful resort community. Well, okay, apartment complex, luxury community, and she's like, I'm going to live like a single woman because this is the environment. It breeds, attractive single people that are successful. Does that make sense? It's like, do I really want to live here with my family, or do I want to act like I'm single? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like that's what she did. So now Wendy was doing an excellent job. Let's give credit where credit's due. Okay, she was doing an excellent job as a manager. In fact, she decided to get totally involved with her position, her job title. She decided to have pool parties every Saturday for the residents. How lovely of her. How nice of her.